How exactly did I become the alternative speaker? How did I get onto this path? Well, it happened quite strangely. You know, you go through life making plans, and you're told to have plans. You're told to have goals in life, and many of you are thinking, "What's my career path? What do I want to do? What's my mission?" Right? We've talked about mission. People are thinking, "What's my mission?" Well, I didn't have access to any of this knowledge. I didn't have any awareness to this level when I was young. So I had no awareness, no warning when in 2005 I had my big awakening. But really it was in 2004. In 2004, I was just kind of mingling and studying filmmaking, and I met someone who had close connections to, as she stated, ETs, extraterrestrials. And she was very upbeat and positive, and so I wanted to know more about ETs. I don't know why. It's just something that drew me to that particular topic, ETs, and this strange girl who I had met on a film or a TV series. That discussion led to a fascination with this idea that there are these friendly ETs. And that sort of stayed with me for the next year. And from 2004 to 2005, my life went through a big personal shift. And in 2005 is when I started to have these interests in all the alternative topics. Did we land on the moon? Are there aliens? Is there going to be an invasion? And you started listening to Coast to Coast AM, which was the radio show to listen to back then. I think one of the only few radio programs, Coast to Coast AM. And they took on all the crazies. All the crazies. But they're well presented. They had a good argument. Some of them made a lot of sense, and some of them made less sense. But there's that through line. The through line was something is going on that's not reaching the mainstream. This is 2004, right? This is 2003, 2004, 2005. This is pre-really social media. This is before the YouTube really took off. This is before Twitter. This is before Google exploded. This is way before the iPhone. The iPhone was introduced in 2007. So we still had the basic mobile phone, right? So this is before that jump into knowledge and sharing videos, sharing knowledge, blogging, right? This is at the time of MySpace. MySpace was mostly blogging. This is even before Facebook, right? So this is kind of 2003 is when I started to get into this alternative stuff. 2004 is when I got interested in ETs for some reason. And then, so those 2 years, there's this kind of recalibration. And that there's something here, and we're not getting it in the mainstream, but it's really intriguing, it's really interesting. I want to hear it all. And I was educating myself. And I wanted to hear this counter programming. And we used to get this in the movies, when I was a kid. we used to get this secret information, alternative views, alternative knowledge, cosmic knowledge, kind of classified information. We used to get it through movies. And we trusted, when I was younger, we trusted filmmakers to bring that knowledge through movies using the entertainment as an entertaining thing, right? So there will be a plot in the movie where there would be this secret knowledge, this advanced knowledge. Even if you look at James Bond, the older James Bond, well, they shared some highly classified information. Secret military installations, right? Where did James Bond go? Underground military installation. If you watch the movie Moonraker, there's a secret space program where the shuttles are flying these genetically superior people, right, into space. And they're going to have their own space station, a second space station on a secret space program funded by some crazy character, sometimes with a cat. So we had access to that information. At some point, those filmmakers, they lost funding, or they were told not to take those kind of risks, and movies were kind of filtered. And we started to get this kind of brainless, this brainless, senseless entertainment. But we still need that information, so an alternative remained, right? So the radio. And as films, if you look at films today, there's almost nothing of any substance really reaching the film, like big films. Big films are supposed to tell us things that we can't get elsewhere. They're supposed to tell us that. That's why they have this privilege. They have money, access, and the film is very influential and can reach a mass audience. It's a privilege. It was once a privilege. Today it's highly controlled, right? If you look at, Spielberg's early film, right? The movie on the extraterrestrials. That, of course, that's this information coming to us through the movies, science fiction. We don't get as much of that. So I was listening to alternative radio, and in 2005, now my life's gone through a big shift. I've had to give up on certain career paths. I've made some changes. In 2005, in November, I'm on the internet learning all of this secret information, and you don't know what's true. That's when I was visited by these elves. The elves. That was kind of my big wake up, when these elves came through a portal inside my bachelor apartment. And I've written about this, and I've talked about this. These three beings, people. They're human people, and I call them elves, but I think most people are familiar with them as inner earth people. So this is 2005, and three of them came to visit me, and they started telling me things. And they came 3 nights in a row, and they kept saying the same things. And I reasoned, well, I can't have a hallucination 3 nights in a row at around the same time if I'm not taking any drugs at all. And there was other elements there. There was the energy, there was the physicality, there was a giant portal. There were these other elements that you cannot rationalize, you cannot explain away. And they said, basically you need to, do certain things, and then we can communicate better. And after that, I went to see this. I found a psychic in Vancouver, where I was living. I went to see a psychic, and I said to her, "I've got these people. They said that you can help me." And she said, "I can't help you." So then, this is going by email. I wrote an email. I says, "Listen, these people said that you can do an energy healing, and this would help me." And it turned out that the lady never advertise energy healing. She was basically like a psychic intuitive, and but she did energy healing on her family members, just on her personal family, and she's never told anybody, and it's not advertised, not in the brochure. So I said, "You can do an energy healing." That's what they said. I said, these new friends of mine said that you can do, because I'm new to this stuff. I'm just completely out of the water. I'm a fish out of water. So most of us, you're running on intuition, right? I'm running on intuition. I said, "Listen, you can help me because you can do this energy healing." She wrote back, says, "Come on Monday, and I'll do it." And I took the last of my money. This is now December. I took the last of my money for December, and I gave it to her to do an energy healing. So we have a very irrational situation for most people. For me, it's like, well, there's a through point. There's a through line. Like when you listen to alternative knowledge, like some people are really educated and know what they're talking about, and some people are just way off base. But there's a through line that there are elements of truth that these people are just interpreting differently, and they're understanding differently, right? It's just like if you listen to two physicists, they will argue, and they will use their theories to argue against and argue for the same point. But there's this through line that there's something to argue about. So that was what I could trust, is that no matter how crazy or how wild, that there's something people are talking about, and it's the same thing, and we're looking at it from different angles. And some people do it better, and some people have more facts, some people have more evidence, some people are more philosophical, but there's something there. So with these elves, when they said things, and then they pointed out to this young lady, it turned out she can help me. It turned out she can do the energy healing, which no one's supposed to know about. And then we did a healing, and healings are very personal, sacred things. But during the healing process, there were some ET visitations, let's say, and it freaked her out. The lady, she's a really nice lady, she had to leave the room because there were so many visitations. So now, not only did these three elves visit, and not only did they point me to this other strange healer, which I've never really dealt with. Now we're having a session, and there are more of these star beings, and I'm seeing them, and now I have a witness. She's seeing them, and she's more trained into seeing this stuff and dealing with this. And she has to leave the room several times because they talk really fast. Star beings, they have a much faster vernacular. They're more telepathic, and they can share information really fast, and it can be overwhelming. It can be confusing. So you had this in November to December. Paris is on a new path. So you make plans, you have a mission, you have a goal. And I was in the middle of my life. I was in my late 30s when this happened. So this is not something you plan for. This is not something I needed. I didn't need to deal with star people in my late 30s, you know. I needed a better job. I needed a career. But this is what happens. And my view is, if there's enough validity to it and it feels like it's real and you need to understand it, I just jump in. And so I started to jump in. And then I got into, I never got into the UFO community because a lot of that stuff was a lot of disinformation. But I did connect with a group that has some good information. And then things just, one thing after another. In 2006, if some people remember, I volunteered to fly a starcraft over Earth cities, and that would have been the big disclosure. That was a sort of one of my missions, really, is to fly a star. I had a starcraft assigned, and I was going to fly it. And that's when I encountered the cabal. These cabal have these paramilitary operations, and that's where I also met the members of the secret space program. And there's multiple levels. There are good guys and there are bad guys. Well, they did not want this rogue pilot, this rogue star pilot, to fly an advanced ship over Manhattan, because that wouldn't be good for the cover-up, right? So that's when I became a target, and I was heavily attacked to a level that I've never dealt with before, and my life was in danger. So we're going from waking up to this beautiful awareness that we're not alone, and that they're star beings, and that I woke up to the fact that I have a very long history, a very old relationship with star people that goes back in my memory to when I was 3 years old. So, and when you wake up, when I woke up, all those memories started to come back, and I can remember these star beings, these stellans, in my life since I was very young. It was blocked. It was, one of these memory blocks. And we talked about this, that you get hobbled, right? There's a certain hobbling. Can be spiritual hobbling, can be memory, can be abilities, right? Your abilities, your understanding of things, your certain karmic relationships. So that was blocked so that I could live this mundane life, so that I could understand the life of a human being. And I can go through the challenges without having any advantage, without having any really good access to advanced information. So there's a struggle, right? Life is very hard. And you deal with personal relationships, you deal with finances, you deal with careers and jobs and car repair. You do all those things. But at some point, right, some people here, at some point, you've lived the mundane life, and now you have to do your thing. And to me, that happened in my mid to late 30s, is when I was kind of forced, pushed into this. Okay, now you've lived a life. Life is kind of repetitive, right? It's kind of doesn't really go anywhere. You don't find any satisfaction in life unless you get into love, unless you get into spirituality, unless you get into understanding the bigger picture, right? Unless you get out of the mainstream into the high stream. I call it the high stream. So I was pushed, and I entered the first field I entered was this UFO field, and I had direct interaction with these cabal operatives, and there's a whole slew of them, and they have an operation. They work from underground installations. They have the back engineered ships. They have the people on the ground. It's a lot more involved than people would like to believe. And if you understood it at my level, you would have a problem really living your life, because they are very involved. And they're very aware of people, and they interact, and they intercept, and they put aside people that they don't want. So those first few years, I was heavily attacked, and I had to kind of fight my way through, which in retrospect is not as bad. At the time, it was very difficult. In retrospect, it's that process, right? It's the process of the 13-year-old kid being put in the jungle with a knife and then left there to survive, and the kid has to make it out of the jungle alive. And some kids don't make it alive. Some kids are forever damaged, and some kids, they learn there's something inside them which they use to survive, right? And this is used today in many number of groups, but it's also used in the spiritual field, even in the interstellar field, that you have to go through this kind of, it's not a ritual, but it is a process. Like, they can't hold your hand forever. If you study magic, it's the same thing. Magic is the same thing. And if you study magic, you have to go through the training process, and most people don't make it. And some people make it to the second stage, and then they give up. And some people make it to the third stage, and they give up. But the people who make it through, who continue, those people, they've managed to go through all this stuff. They earned their way. It's no different in the interstellar field. And as I survived the challenges and the dangers of this field, because it's very dangerous, because the cabal and the people who control the world, the masters of the world, they don't want people to wake up. They don't want people like me to share knowledge, because I have access to stuff that others cannot access, right? If you look at my videos and my books, there's this stuff, some of it has never been shown or talked about before. Today, so I've been talking now for almost 15 years. Today, there are people saying the same things I was saying 15 years ago. And 15 years ago, people were calling me crazy. And today they still call me crazy. But 15 years ago, that was the big thing they used. He's crazy. And the things I was talking about then, many light workers are talking about now. Which it just shows you that it's this process that if the knowledge is true and real and valid, it remains, and other people can hear it, and then they make more sense out of it, right? If I'm talking about it and you don't make sense of it, and then you hear it, and then someone else says it, now we have more points of reference. We have this, you can corroborate, well, he said this way, he said it that way, she said it this way, she said it this way, and you make your own, you make the information your own, because it's valid, right? Now it has some shape and texture. But if no one talks, if nobody talks because they're afraid of being called names, and if they're shut down, then we've got no chance. So I was talking about stuff, and it was very difficult. Again, the YouTube was just entering 2005, 2006. You had a 10-minute, nobody trusted YouTube, right? You didn't trust YouTube as an information source. When Facebook came out, you didn't trust Facebook. Twitter came out later. No one used Twitter. When Twitter first came out, I picked it up and I told everybody, this is incredible. No one listened. No one wanted to use it. And then after a while, I abandoned it. And later, it just took off, right? We take for granted that today we have all these media channels. We have Instagram and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, and we've got FaceTime, and we've got smartphone. So none of that was available at the time that I was speaking. So when I went on YouTube, I had 10 views on my video. And I didn't really know what I was saying anyway. But I took a different route, because most people in this field would have went to the Coast to Coast AM radio. Yeah. And I sent a request to Coast AM that says, we're not interested. More than once. They said, call us back when you have a book or something. And so I didn't really have much of a choice. Blogging wasn't enough, and then I took the YouTube route. I was one of the early guys who was taking YouTube to talk about aliens, which is, because YouTube was not used for that. And then later, more and more people came on. Later, shows like Coast to Coast AM, they ported their material to YouTube. And then more alternative teachers, YouTube, because YouTube then had a validity, right? It had a validity. It has some good information if you knew where to look, right? And then more information came. But that wasn't the case in the beginning, right? So I got into this field, and I wanted to understand more, and my path to understanding was talking. I would research, right? I would analyze, I would bring information, and I would talk. And my view was, the more I shared, if it resonates, if I get things right, it'll resonate with others who are waking up. And there were people at that time waking up. So I was there to help that new wave I'm taking new information, and I'm not bringing that old UFO stuff. I'm bringing new stuff, new perspectives. So one of my challenges was, it's got to be something new. It's got to come from me. So I'm not copying people. It's got to come from me, and I have my own way of presenting. I'm not yelling and screaming. To me, this is like a class, right? This is like a short class. And it's not just rambling. It's not rambling. There's a lot of thought that goes into all of my discussions. And there's thought when an old discussion 10 years ago still is relevant, it still makes sense, and it still contains something you can learn from. And even I go back to my older videos and I still learn stuff, because there's so much information that I still learn stuff. And so that was my path. So what happened is something that was not planned. None of this was planned. I had no plan in my late 30s to start talking about ETs, or to even believe in ETs, because I have never really talked about ETs until that point. Even though I've been interacting with them throughout my life, and I've just rationalized or explained it away in some other method, right? Whether it's just a contact, whether it's an inspiration, whether it's an epiphany. I just said, oh yeah, I had an epiphany. Well, was it from me or was it from somebody else? So my life changed, and since then I've pushed a lot of this new information. And really, what's kept me going is this stuff is relevant, it's important, it has substance, and some people need to hear it. Obviously, not everybody wants to hear, and not everybody wants to hear right from me. They want to hear from somebody else. So I inspire somebody else, and someone else inspires me. And so we have this information sharing. And this is kind of what drives me, is if I had thought of all the risks and the dangers of entering this field of alternative knowledge, if you had that, when you make a decision, I can go path A, path B, path C. Well, if you go to alternative knowledge, your life's going to be in danger. You're going to lose all your friends. You won't be able to have a job. People are going to call you crazy. And you'll basically be sidelined for the next 10 or 15 years. Versus, or do you want path B? You'll get a good job, you'll have friends, you'll have a family, right? Obviously, no one would choose A. But in my particular case, and I can't say this for everyone, in my case, I don't think about the details. I just think about, is this, when you fall in love, you don't think about the divorce. You don't meet somebody and say, oh, but there's going to be a divorce. Nah, I'm not going to bother. Forget about it. I don't trust them. I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to have a few, right? I'm not going to get married. If you do that, once you start thinking too much, you're not going to do anything, right? You're not going to do anything. Instead, my view is, okay, well, there's an attraction, there's an interest. I'm not thinking about the divorce, although, you're not walking in blind, but you're not thinking about all the negative stuff. You're not, because otherwise you won't do anything. You won't even leave the house, because you think, I'm going to get in my car and I could have an accident. I could be poisoned. I could go to work and I could hurt myself. I'm not going to get a job, right? If I get a relationship, they're going to backstab me. They're going to cheat on me. Yeah, all that stuff's going to happen. That stuff's going to happen anyway. But for me, maybe, I don't know, sometimes it's an issue and sometimes it's a benefit. In this particular field, of jumping in the alternative knowledge, I didn't think about it too much, right? After seeing the psychic and giving away most of my food money for December, I just became enthralled with this new perspective, this new life, this new potential. And it came with a lot of problems. It was very serious and difficult and dangerous at times. There was no real benefit in terms of what we think of. But there was this other importance, is that I was doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So if I had this mission, which at this point it is a mission, it was a mission, right? Then that's what I did. And the reason I'm still here is because it was a mission. And missions within missions, because I've talked about many things. I've covered many areas over the last 14 or 15 years. Some of them very new, groundbreaking. The synthetic humans has never been touched before. Does it mean that I have solved all the problems and that I've achieved disclosure? No. That's not the point. That's not the mission. The mission is each of us moves the dial forward. Each of us moves it forward. Each wave introduces another wave. And the wave grows, right? The wave grows and grows. And the moment you say, that's when the wave starts to collapse. And that's what the opposition wants. That's what the controllers want. The master controllers, the cabal, that's what they want. They want to shut people up. And they've tried to shut me up. But the goal, if you want to continue your mission, the mission is do what you're supposed to do. If it comes at a cost, that's up to you to deal with. My life came at a cost, a heavy cost, a cost that I cannot correct. I can't correct. It's gone. By the same token, I was able to continue my mission. So, and my mission wasn't necessarily to reach millions of people. My mission was to reach, a small group of people. Like I said, it's a wave. The wave starts, the ripples, and then it turns into a small wave, and then the wave grows, and then the wave grows bigger and bigger, and that's how you get a big wave. You don't get a big wave. People always think, well, there's got to be a big splash, a big disclosure. I'll do it when the disclosure happens. Well, the disclosure's not going to happen because you're waiting for the big splash. There's no big splash. There's no big splash. It's a bunch of people doing the work. You got to go to, you go to work every day and you work for 10 years and you're still just getting by. But over those 10 years, you've accomplished a lot. It doesn't happen in one instant. Except in the movies. In the movies, it happens in one instant. It happens in a big, it's the end of the world. We got to save the end of the world. There's only one person who has a one key that fits in one hole, and we have 1 minute to put it in. And that's called a movie. That's not real life. Real life is you got to do the work every day, hours at a day, over many years, and people will still call you crazy. But the good news is it's a long-term approach, is that, it's not your children that will benefit. It's not your children's children. It could be your children's children's children that will say, hey, there was this guy, I think his name was Paris, and he was talking about synthetic humans. And, that guy, he had something. And look, and they all called him crazy, right? If you look in history, right? If you want that validation, look in history, and the early pioneers, they were ritualistically abused and tortured, imprisoned, and they were they inspire people, right? That doesn't mean, I'm not saying to be a martyr. I'm just saying you have to look at the long term, and are you sharing the right information? So for me, am I sharing the right information? If it's not valid today, will it be valid tomorrow? Is it something that's going to take time, right? And just because there's not a large group of people who like to listen to it, does that mean that it's not valid? Does that mean that it's not worthwhile?